Hey guys, Mark here. So I just was on Chris Hansen's channel, and I saw he had on Blaire White, J. Von Monroe, and Sebastian Murdoch to talk about the Davi Vanity case. And there's a lot of great insight that I got from that, so today I'm going to be talking about basically what they talked about, and also the sort of cult-like dynamic that people like Davi Vanity and Onision have with their fans, and what exactly is up with that. So to start things off, Davi Vanity and Onision are some very similar figures. They're both the biggest targets of Chris Hansen, and they also share very similar allegations. Both have a very young fan base, both are big on YouTube, and both have been accused of taking advantage of their young fans. But to make things worse, both also have cult-like followings. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into this, because as we know, with Onision, we had things like the Onision forums, where according to some former moderators, fans of Onision would treat him like a god. And it would also get super toxic because people were so obsessed with Onision that they would do literally anything for him. Whatever pictures he wanted them to send, even going to his house, they would do it, they didn't care. And oftentimes, like in the case of Shiloh for example, or with the case of Sarah, they would run away from home to be with Onision or convince their parents that it was okay. So it's clear that he had a very strong influence over these people, and because of that, a lot of his fans deified him, and that was where the cult stemmed from. A big thing is that these fans were very young, so they didn't really know much better, so when this guy comes on saying things that they like, or this guy who they might find attractive, a lot of these young girls pretty much form a cult, and that's kind of how cults start to form in general. I did a video recently where I used the bite model to talk about this topic, and in that video I kind of determined that Onision is sort of a cult leader. Maybe not to the extent of something like Heaven's Gate, but still a cult leader nonetheless. I mean, feel free to debate me on that, but I think the evidence is pretty clear. Now in the case of Davi Vanity, there is some evidence that his followers treat him like a cult leader. So on Have a Seat with Chris Hansen, Blaire White actually said that in response to her Davi video, some of his young fans said, "How dare you talk about my savior like that? Davi saved my life." Weird things like that you wouldn't hear normally from any other YouTuber. You would hear these things sort of from a cult, right? And this is kind of similar from what you'd hear from Onision's fans, right? Because Onision had this cult following, and he had his diehard fans go after anyone who criticized him. Now, what's really interesting here is that even after all the allegations, after all the things that we know now about both Davi Vanity and Onision, they still have these big cult-like followings of young fans. Now, the key factor is that these fans are young and impressionable, so they probably don't know that much about the situation. They don't really know about the world in general, to be honest, so it's very easy for people like Onision and for people like Davi to take advantage of their fanbase. And Davi is actually profiting off of this. As I said in my last video about Davi, he has a merch line called Dark Arts. I don't know how much he's been making from this, but he's clearly making a profit because he's not stopping anytime soon. His YouTube channel, Kawaii Monster, is also quite active right now, so it's clear that Davi is making some financial gains from the cult following that he has. And this is a big issue because not only do we not want to have people like Davi or Onision on YouTube and having these big platforms, but we definitely don't want them profiting off of these terrible things that they're doing. And overall, it's pretty upsetting that these tactics that people like Davi and Onision use are still working, even after all this time, because with a new generation of teens, it's easy for these people to keep capitalizing on their innocence and their naivete. And that's the big problem here that I see too often on YouTube, and that's why people like Chris Hansen have to go out there and catch these people and expose them, because it's really an epidemic on this platform. Now, according to J. Von Monroe, who actually used to be a member of Davi's band Blood on the Dance Floor, Davi has a very childish personality. He also had anger issues and was prone to outbursts, so Jay actually said he wouldn't really want to hang out with Davi after shows, and Davi would also spend a lot of time talking to the young fans. So what I gather from all of this is that Davi's immature personality and also his lack of emotional control probably made it easier for him to connect with his young fans, right? Because he would be able to talk to them on their level, right? And this is something similar that I saw with Onision. On the Onision forums, for instance, he would talk to his young fans as if they were equals, even though he would be 10-20 years older than them when he was talking to them, and he would talk about things like mental health, for example, or more intimate and sensitive topics that he shouldn't have been talking to them about. And I think a big through line here, the big kind of trend, is that these sorts of people are very childish in nature or have that as part of their public image. Anger issues are also a common factor because, as we saw with Onision, his meltdown videos are clear signs, even if they were staged, are clear signs that he's got some issues and is a very angry person. There was also the case of his his daughter falling out of a window and weird things like that. So it's clear that Onision wasn't right in the head, and in this case, Dahvie with his childish personality and his anger issues, I think it's the same thing going on here. So it's clear that there's a trend and an indirect link between Davi Vanity and Onision in the sense that they are sort of cult leaders that are maintaining this cult status off of the young and impressionable people who follow them. In any case, I'm glad that Chris Hansen is going after these people because they've done enough damage, not only on YouTube, but in the real world. And I think it's time for them to face justice. I'll put a link to Chris Hansen's video below if you guys want to check it out yourselves, and it's a pretty long video, so that's why I like to condense my information on here, but there's a lot of great stuff in there, especially from Jay, who talks about his personal experiences dealing with Dahvie, as well as how he started to realize what was really going on behind the scenes. Blaire White and Sebastian Murdoch also give more insight into this case. They actually had spoken to the women who unfortunately had encountered Davi Vanity when they were younger and talk about these witness testimonies with Chris Hansen. So once again, that link will be in the description and you guys can feel free to check that out. As for this video, please let me know if you would like me to make more videos on topics like this. I have been considering talking about cults and the way they function. I don't know if you know this, but I used to be part of Amway, which was kind of a cult in and of itself. I used to call it business Scientology. So if you guys would like me to make more videos on that, please let me know. I might do more videos on cult psychology and the bite model, which would be really nice to talk about. So yeah, once again, please let me know what your thoughts are. Thank you all so much for watching. And as always, I will see you all next time. Peace.